Welcome to satsang.
Yes.
Can you please talk about the way of the heart?
Yes. So, from my perspective, the only way to live this life is the way of the heart. Because it's so beautiful, it's so exquisite. And when heart is open, when heart's being experienced, there's a feeling that you want to take care of everyone and everything. And so morality is not required. Rules aren't required. Laws aren't required. Because you will take care of everybody and everything. The heart affects the mind so beautifully, so sweetly. It is the true jewel of consciousness. If we're fortunate enough to be open enough to experience that, there is just no other way to live. And if the whole planet lived the way of the heart, this would be a lotus paradise. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't experience much heart, and as a result there are all sorts of tragedies occurring, from family abuse to wars, terrorism. When someone's in their heart, they can't be involved in those things. They can only be involved in taking care. Such a sweetness, such a nectar, to know the beauty of that. And so about 30 years ago, I changed my life because I started experiencing heart. The heart started awakening, and it affected my mind to such a degree that I didn't want to be a businessman anymore. And I had a large company, publishing company in Fremantle, and after a few months of this heart, I just gave it to my staff. I walked in and gave the companies everything, the furniture, everything to the staff, because I didn't want to see them suffer in any way if I had sold it. And this is how the heart, or love, affects the mind. My staff wouldn't accept it, and they said no. And so it took another week before I came in again and said, you are going to take it because I'm not going to be here anymore. And my adventure in search of heart, because I'd only had glimpses up to that point, began. And I'd been programmed at school to be a winner. I'd been programmed a bit like a tank. I was good at business, but I wasn't very good at anything else. And so I had to find another way to be in the world. But it was the most important thing to me, to find this way to be in the world. And so I hit the road for 4 years, walking around Australia. I took my shoes off for most of that time so I could feel the earth, looking for my heart. And eventually it dawned on me that the way of the heart is in service to something else besides yourself. And so I started looking at how I could be in service to other human beings, to animals, to the planet in general. And eventually I decided that I'd like to help people with their medical problems. So I trained as a naturopath and became a naturopath in service to people who were sick or who had problems. And as I was going through, I noticed that a lot of the time the problems were created by the mind. So then I went back to school and I trained as a psychotherapist, so I could be in service to help people with their minds. And that was so cool, to be able to help a person change the patterning that was creating unhappiness and sickness in them. And it's not like you really add any new patterns to people. It's more like you show them the patterns that aren't working, and then it's up to them to take them away. And so we have all these default patterns inside of ourselves, some of which are very healthy and some of which are very limiting, and some are outright detrimental. But if we remove these patterns, we can have a much more buoyant, much more happy life. And if we practice openness, we can find heart. And when we find heart, we're self-nourishing. It's very beautiful. Sense of connection with everybody and everything through the heart, which is something the mind can't really do. So the way of the heart, from my perspective, is the only way to live this life.
So what would it look like for someone to serve heart?
I don't think it really has a look. It's an intent. It's an intention. You can have two people doing exactly the same thing, and they could just be digging ditches. But one has the intention of helping, supporting, caring for something, and the other just wants to make a day's wages and doesn't really like digging ditches anyway. So it's really about where you're coming from inside of yourself. What's your intention? And the intention that serves the heart is the intention to help, to in some way care. This intention will carry you through. You'll find a way. And this is the beauty way.
So in you, how did that willingness to serve the heart arise? How did it happen?
For me it was simple. I actually started experiencing my own heart, and that began when I was lost at sea on a boat and it was sinking, and my partner was in the water and we were going to either drown or be eaten by sharks because we were 60 miles off the coast in a sunken boat, and there was sharks circling us. We're in the water for 18 hours. And I looked across at my partner, who was asleep in the water in a life jacket, and I just felt so much love for her in that moment. And it wasn't a love that wanted anything in return. It was just pure love. It was beautiful. And this was a taste. And there was a realization that this was valuable. But everything else I had wasn't, because nothing else I had, I couldn't have at that moment. And back in Perth, in the city, I had a Rolls Royce, and I had a flybridge cruiser, and I had houses, and I had businesses, but none of it was valuable compared to this love, this little bit of love that I was experiencing. And this is when I really started to get my values correct. What is worthwhile on this plane and what is not? And love is worthwhile. Love is worthwhile. And so that was the beginning of the end. It was 9 months after that, because we were rescued. It was 9 months after that I gave my companies to my staff and decided to walk around Australia in search of my heart.
So why do you choose to teach the way of the heart?
I've got nothing else to do. It's really, there's nothing else to do. I look around at my relatives, I look around at my friends, I look around at the people in general, and I see a lot of suffering. And the way of the heart is the beauty way. It takes you out of suffering. It takes you into beauty. And because the way of the heart affects the mind in that it wants to start giving instead of taking. It starts experiencing the joy of giving. The joy of genuinely giving without wanting something back. And there's such a beauty in that. If people can get that, it changes their whole life. And so I teach the way of the heart because I want to see people happy. I want to see them have joy. It's also the pathway to enlightenment. Because in serving heart, you as an I lay yourself down for the benefit of others, for something greater than you. So the heart is a great teacher. It teaches us how to surrender. It teaches us how to accept. It teaches us how to let go and allow. It teaches us how to love.
Is wisdom then a result of developing heart?
Wisdom is a funny word. I've contemplated wisdom a fair bit. What is wisdom? You know, as we get older, do we become wise old people? Do we become the elders of the tribe? And I looked at, well, what does that mean to be an elder of the tribe, to be the wise one? And I started to realize that what everybody wants on this planet is happiness. And if we know how to be happy, we have wisdom. Doesn't matter how old we are. If we know how to be genuinely happy, we have wisdom. And so, yeah, you get wisdom from the heart. But ultimately, if awakening occurs, if awareness discovers itself, then there is profound contentment for no reason, which is my ultimate definition of happiness. To be happy for no reason, to just be content for no reason. And this is the flowering of human consciousness. And the beauty way takes you here. The way of the heart.
So if the path of the heart can lead to enlightenment, is that what happened for you?
The way of the heart had me learn to put myself as an I aside over and over and over again for the benefit of others. And there was such a willingness to serve heart that this became very easy. And as you put yourself aside, you as an I start to diminish. You become less than rather than more than. Then there's just service. Then there's just love. And so the way of the heart prepared the ground for the mind to be ready for enlightenment. It's not the mind that wakes up, but it is the mind that is going to support awakening. A mind that can stay quiet, a mind that can stay still, a mind that is not going to get in the way is the right type of mind. And the way of the heart helps produce that. The way of the heart is the way.
When you talk about heart, that experience, is that in itself an awakening?
Yes. Some people talk about enlightenment, that's an awakening where awareness becomes aware of itself or beingness becomes aware of itself. But the heart can awaken as well, and it can awaken before enlightenment. The heart opens and you experience unconditional love. It's very beautiful. There's a good chance it'll close again because of all the defences you might have. And so once you notice that, you start to remove the defences because you're interested in heart, you're interested in love. And so you start to remove the defences, everything that's in the way of that awakening, everything that's in the way of the heart, you remove. And so you start to walk through the world with openness instead of closure. You start to wear your heart on your sleeve instead of defend it. This is the beauty way. And it's up to you. Nobody will make you do that. You have to choose that. You have to look for it for yourself and see, wow, what's really worthwhile here? What's really worthwhile here?